Okay, so it is 7:06, and I will call this meeting of the Vinal Square Strategic Action Plan Committee to order. And just an announcement, we are recording this on Zoom right now, mainly for the purpose of facilitating the minutes. So our first agenda item is the library dialogue. I want to welcome Leslie and Nancy. If you recall, Leslie and Nancy were here at our last meeting and invited us to have a one-to-one or a group session with them if we chose to do that. And I did meet with them one-on-one, and I thought that it might be beneficial for them to just come and have a dialogue with the committee on some of the questions they're trying to wrap up sort of the strategic planning process in July for the library. And they also just had a really great information about what's happening with the K and the library in general. So I will turn it over to you. Want me to share my screen with the questions, or do you care?
I don't know that people need them, but if people want them.
Do you know everybody?
I know everybody by face, but not necessarily by name.
All right, so if you don't mind, why don't we just go around and say who you are?
Sarah Fernandez. I am an associate planning board member and also a member here, live in Rochester for about 10 years.
Bill Gillette, I've been on the committee for quite a while since its formation. Nice to meet you, thanks for being here.
We can do that.
Mike Walsh, I'm on the committee past couple of years, former planning board member, but now on the committee full time.
Christine, DPW director.
Me too.
Oh, down there.
We have Evan. Go ahead, Evan. You know Evan, right?
Hi, good evening, Evan Blansky, Town of Chelmsford.
Laura.
Yep, Laura Lee, I'm a committee member also.
We have Jason Ford, who's from the police department, and Brian.
Evening all, Brian Creamer, been on the committee for a couple of years. I'm headed your way, so I'll see you in a few minutes.
Hey, Brian.
And then Aaron, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Aaron Cunningham, the liaison from the select board.
And who is the phone number who just joined?
Hello, Virginia. You hear me?
Yeah. Is that Laura?
That's
This is
Laura.
Marlon. I
Okay.
joined the meeting.
Okay, and we're.
Sorry I was late.
It's okay, we're recording it for you for the minutes, okay?
Perfect. Yep, great. Thank you.
All right, so Leslie and Nancy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for giving us more time from your meetings. We're really happy to be here. As Virginia said, we're working on the strategic plan, as you all know, and we just would love to get your thoughts on a few things. Nancy McComb is our head of our services and coordinator of services over at the branch, McKay. So she's the person who's been spearheading the recent changes and wonderful things, the expansion of hours that have started now. So on Wednesdays, we're open 12:30 to 8:30 instead of just 3 to 6. So that was a really big expansion that we're very excited about, and the other things that are happening. So the strategic plan, we have good timing because we're coming on the heels of the towns, which means we're able to make sure that we have really good alignment with what's happening there. So we're happy to see how it all melds together, kind of the information that the town gathered and then how we sort of focus in on what's happening with the library. So what we thought we would do is just kind of walk through a couple questions that I know Virginia kindly shared out ahead of time, and would just love to kind of hear what you think. I'm gonna let Nancy do that piece.
Okay, all right, thanks Leslie. And nice to meet everyone. So I think Virginia did send these in advance, but I'll just read the questions and we would love to know what you have to say. So our first thing that we were wondering about is what are some of the things that may limit how often you go to the McKay Branch Library? And feel, yep. And
Having no weekend hours definitely makes it difficult if you're people that work. You know, like 6 o'clock at night, the 8:30 is not bad, but it's like midweek.
yeah.
Okay. What kind of weekend?
I guess something like Saturday, like in general, like when we go to the main library, sometimes it's to go in there, we do puzzles and things like that, or, you know, cool off a little bit on like a hot day. And we also like the events that they have at the main branch, like when they have the speakers talking and different classes that occur, and stuff to see that way.
Anyone else?
I'm just not around. It has nothing to do with the library. Nothing.
Do you use any of the online things that the library has? Just
I don't.
curious. You know,
No.
I shouldn't put you on the spot like that. Excuse me, when was the last time?
I like the passes, so
That's not what we're doing.
an example of passes is
Yeah.
you know, different things they have, so we've used that.
So you're out of town a lot.
I am. I would like to maybe know what some of the online things are about, so before we end, maybe you could give just a little overview.
Aaron, since you're the only public member here, if you wanna give them any feedback, please feel free.
Actually, I took a little survey online and they have it, so.
Okay. So we would love to hear anything more.
Anyone in the Zoom room?
Sure, I'll go. I'll second the bit about weekend activities, stopping in for on a hot day. We're also sort of avid users of Libby and other online resources. We borrowed the tablets once, and I think those might only be able to be returned at the main library. Didn't deter us from borrowing them, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you can return them both places. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, you can, just so you know.
I think the main library also has like fun kits and things for people to pick up. I don't know if you all do that, like the kits of different things there.
Right, specifically the adult ones or the kid ones or a mix?
Mix.
Alright.
But I know a big thing there at the main library is that big puzzle table. Like, people are always there.
If you're in the Zoom, can you hear Sarita?
I'm probably not talking about that.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Other things that would make it easier, or people you know too, not just you, do you think? So here's a North Chelmsford question, do you think people know that McKay is there and that it's a library?
No,
It's like a house, so.
Yeah, I did ask around a little bit. Some of the things they said was having a good selection of audiobooks, but also like the library puts out signs of events that are occurring, like that could be seen when you're driving by. So I'm not sure what's visible from where you're located. But that was the thing, is just definitely seeing it, because the more you see it when you're driving by things, it's like, oh yeah, that's occurring. It makes you wanna maybe check it out.
I do like the concerts online signs.
Yeah.
Those are good. Those that I know, and I've been around North Chelmsford for, too long, they all know very much about McKay. For sure.
I'm glad to hear that.
Paul, with respect to the signs, one of the things I had suggested to Leslie is those, the Vote Tuesday granite posts. I don't know if there's anything that, like, people drive by that every day, so if you have the concerts in the summer or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I would be able to, maybe they could put something up there up in the community.
Yeah.
Or just a standalone sign.
Yeah, we added the wayfindings, we're in the process of adding the wayfinding sign, so that will help if more pedestrians in the area get to them. Some people might not know exactly where it is, so that is part of that wayfinding.
What about like a scavenger hunt, find your library?
Alright, number 2, and I think we maybe have covered this somewhat, but is there anything that the library could offer there that would encourage or excite you to go to McKay? I know you're giving some of yourself.
Yeah, a lot of
Any
words.
of those people love the concerts.
I think the talks are huge too.
What did you say?
Talks, so like downstairs on the TV, they were flashing up some stuff happening at the main library. I noticed on my way in to go to the elevator, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, they're having that.
Yeah.
So having stuff like that, even advertised outside of your space, like I know there's a lot of online advertising that the library does. Friends of the library advertise a lot of things too, but getting word out there of what's occurring would be a huge step.
Yeah, my kids are grown, but perhaps, things for kids to do. It's a neighborhood full of kids.
Yeah.
So some of those kind of craft kind of things, and maybe you do now, and I apologize.
We could always do more. We do a little bit. We're doing, for young kids, we're doing a story time in June on the lawn. We have a summer concert series. In the fall, we do 2 movie nights. One's always like a kid one. and families come with their blankets and whatnot and watch that, so.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think hopefully being open on Wednesday nights opens a little bit more programming for us, in terms of talks and things like that, so that would be good.
I know I had mentioned to Leslie, painting on the lawn was in Burlington for kids, and I actually did that last summer. So something, I know you have to have to do it, but that was a huge event, and that I think is still being offered.
Oh, okay, we did a paint and sip last summer for teens,
Yeah, this was like 5, like it was any kid from like 4 to 12, so it
Oh,
was
wow.
interesting to see. There was some assistance from the adults.
Yeah, wow.
That word interesting is doing a lot of work.
But it was, they loved it, and it was outdoors, and so it
Yeah.
was.
Are there things that you feel like even if not thinking about the library in particular, are there things that would be fun that we could be looking at offering that would be just something that's missing a little bit? I mean, like, it sounds like you're saying like, oh, this all ages big thing, like things that could be happening in town that maybe we would do at McKay or we would do in that part of town that would be something different that people don't have right now or isn't out there.
A lot of people seem to like plants, so like anything with like growing and like even when the main library does their little tree pickup on Arbor Day.
We have people in the Zoom room coming off of me, so I just wanna check, did you guys? Laura, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of echo Bill. I guess most of my experience with the library, unfortunately, goes back a little ways when the kids were growing up. And I'm also kind of too busy, but if I retire someday, I look forward to using it again. But I will say my experience with it, I was in that library multiple times a week, actually, and we were always taking books out or there for children's activities. So what I saw as the main driver, this is pre-COVID, was really the youth programs from very young up to teen, story hours, like you're saying, and they had spooky story contests, little individual contests worked very well. And then I also saw it was an elderly population, and I would talk to them a lot. They even came in from other towns too, from Westford or whatever. Because it was a small space and it was more manageable, they were less overwhelmed by it. So I think sometimes targeting that older population can be really good in that space. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point about the space. It is, it's different than other spots that we have in town.
Yes. Yeah, and they found it very welcoming and accessible and not overwhelming. I know people just loved it. And I bet there's a lot of people, and particularly in the elderly population, they may not be aware that it's opened up again, right? Because they might be not be on the internet, that sort of thing. So anyways, I think that's a good target group.
Advertisement at like the senior center.
Laura Lynn, you came off mute, did you have something?
Excuse me, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello, this is Laura Lynn. I'm hoping I'm not interrupting anyone. I'm having trouble following along or hearing, but when you guys have a second, I'd love to share something. Is it now good?
It's great.
Now, since it went completely silent, clearly no one knows or talking about anything. Anyway, this is Laura Lynn, and to echo Bill and Laura and also Joe Tierney, my kids are all older. My youngest just graduated high school, which is blowing my mind. But anyway, I just wondered in this conversation if there could be something for that age group, you know, the college kids, early 20s, like something like a reunion or like come back to the library, meet other kids your age. And I don't know if there could be any programming around that to draw them back into the neighborhood, you know, like through the years or something. And like having grown up in North Chelmsford, that'd be pretty cool if you could get them to come back. I don't know, I'd be happy to help, but just a thought that came to mind.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's interesting when Laura said, you know, people maybe don't know about it or don't, you know, older people in the area might not know that it's there. Where do you all, and where do the people you know get information about what's happening? Either in town or in that part of town or you know, obviously we know that's a big struggle.
Facebook, Instagram, the TVs downstairs, signs outside are like the main ones that we see. Like the town clerk with their Instagram account is fun. And you look at, like, I don't know, a lot of people I know watch it for the different stuff that's on there, so stuff like that, that's
I
visible.
double down on that, yeah, the Facebook pages, Chelmsford News, all those things are really popular. If you're looking for anything, you just go on and someone's commenting about something. So, it's a great way to do it.
And it's always so accurate, Rod.
I do not envy you in some of those roles.
I think Zoom also is not. Did we have somebody in the Zoom room try to say something? No, okay.
I will offer though, so the private groups, right, the moms or parents type groups, even if they're not on sort of the publicly available portion of the Facebook, are still, but I recognize you don't control those and you may not be able to post there. You may have to sort of have a surrogate, for lack of a better term, but yeah.
Just one other quick thing to add, I do a lot of events sometimes at the nursery, the Weston Nursery. So I don't know if there's something you could do, like collab with some of the local businesses, there's something maybe they promote to kind of engage what's around there and maybe something they have to offer to make a fun event.
We just got so many pansies from there just today.
Yeah, but I learned how to do cocodamo there, which is like a moss wrapped plant, which is kind of fun, and like a succulent garden, very easy, not mega expensive, but.
Yeah, they would be great partners, they're really good to work with, you know, whenever we're picking stuff up.
I also recognize that there is a pretty good library of things that you all loan out, and I wonder if McKay could be a spot for a sort of specialty, like themed things, right, whatever the thing is. And if it's like you sort of trigger my interest with the idea of a garden, maybe there are gardening tools for it, right, like simple stuff, but.
Does the main library have like a exchange program? Like I've seen other libraries where they have like the baking pans, things like that, like the exchange stuff.
We do have that, yes.
Yeah, we've got an ice cream maker,
Yeah.
which I've checked out more times than I thought we should. We have a mandolin,
Yeah.
like the musical instrument
Yeah.
we have, but I like the idea kind of maybe having a special collection there.
Yeah.
That would be a little bit more specific to what's happening there. I really like that idea.
Cool.
And advertise it in the main, to have them come to yours.
I guess I would just have a thought too, that like I didn't realize the clerk's office was on Instagram, but if there were some suggestions about covering the older teens or young adults, they're not on Facebook. Like, that's like old person platform, so there's different ways, you gotta reach them, not on Facebook.
They have a pretty good phone.
The town, Tricia has a great Instagram, it's very, very fun.
Is there anything else? There's no questions.
Yeah, we did have 3 questions.
Okay.
And so, take a minute. What is on the wish list for North Chelmsford in terms of services and gathering places? You know, so anything that hasn't come up already?
Fun, gathering, networking. You know, stuff like that.
So collecting events that get people kind of come
Get to know your neighbors.
together.
Your concerts on the lawn are really well attended, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hey,
more.
stadium seating.
yeah,
More of that.
how's that?
And advertise during those, when all the people are there.
Yeah,
Advertise
yeah.
for others.
You should advertise when you're anything on Thanksgiving, right? Halloween. There couldn't be more cars in your parking lot on Halloween than anywhere else.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a really, really good point.
okay.
Yeah, I think the chief could do something Halloweenish.
Does anybody have anything else on Zoom or in the room?
No, this is,
Yeah, wonderful. Thank
this
you.
is terrific. You know, we're marching ahead to try to get this plan kind of out the door in early July, which is hard for me to believe that it's already June. But we're looking forward to not just putting this plan together, but then being able to work with you all, put some things things into place. Speaking of the summer concerts, they are coming up, July and August, so definitely come out for that, and we'll just keep you posted about what's happening.
Great,
And share a copy with you when it comes out.
Thanks.
Thanks
Have
for
a
all you
great
do,
night,
okay?
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Do you have any public
Thank you,
comment?
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Sarah, do you have any public comment?
See everybody.
I know we have a couple people who are short on time tonight, so I wanted to make sure we vote on the minutes while we have a quorum, because at least two of us weren't members of this committee then. So Laura Lynn sent out the minutes for December 10th and February 13th.
Do we need a motion for them separately, or can I make a motion?
Well, let me just ask, are there any amendments to either one of those? If not, you can make a motion for both.
Both at the same time. I make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
I'll second, right?
Okay, we have Bill and Brian, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 5 in favor and 2 abstentions.
Okay.
Okay, no, I counted wrong, didn't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor and 2 abstentions. Sorry.
He's the chair.
If you weren't there, could you just?
I'm saying you and I are abstaining.
Yes, I thought, okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Bill and Brian and Christine for the Vinyl Square. Bill, are you leading this one, Bill? Do you want me to share my
Yeah.
screen for everyone?
Sure, it'd be great. You want me to kick off and I'll turn it to the both of you?
I've done this spiel a few times. I have a very condensed version.
Good.
Yeah, why don't you introduce?
I wanna give, but I wanna give a little bit of an update as well, just on some of the things that we've done. So from a fundraising standpoint, we had set a goal of 35,000. We're over 40, I'll at 42. The good news is that we're gonna need it, because some of those change orders that came through, we weren't aware that those were gonna come through. So I'm glad that we exceeded the fundraising, and there's still some, to come. I will let, go ahead, sorry, please ask away.
I missed the other 2 items under administrative.
Oh, go for it, you wanna go back?
I'm sorry, can I back up?
Sure, yeah.
The second one was the Zoom recordings disposition. So the town can't keep all the Zoom recordings on the Zoom account cloud. So we have one of 3 options, and I just wanna find out from the committee what you wanna do. We can delete them after the minutes are approved. I talked to Ted Lutter and Pete Padula, and Ted said you don't wanna save them on the town server, but Pete Padula said because he already has a section opened up for Vinyl Square, it would be very easy if we want him to put those Zoom recordings on the Vinyl Square YouTube section, or he can just archive them where they're not visible, but they're there. So, does anybody have a preference?
Those are 3 options?
Yeah, so if he puts them on with the Vinyl Square section, like the public could go watch the Zoom meeting if they wanted, which is fine with me, but we can't just leave them in the Zoom cloud. So we either have to delete them or have Chelmsford Town Media do something with them.
I like option 2.
Okay.
Archive not visible, or archive so they're visible on YouTube?
Is it people going back, are they going back to them at all? Does anyone go back to them? I don't know.
The ones he films for us are out there on YouTube, so it's just a question of whether you
If
want.
they have space on YouTube, put it on there.
Alright, does anybody in Zoom have an opinion?
I'm actually fine with anything. I don't know if people go back to them. YouTube seems viable. I like that.
Alright,
Does it cost the town anything?
You okay with that, Paul?
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah,
seem to
cost-
think it was a big deal at all to just stick them out on. Alright,
Is there a time frame for which they're out there? Like they keep them?
no,
for a
they're just
certain
there.
And is YouTube around?
Maybe no. Alright, I'll talk to Pete about that, and then my other question, under administrative was I talked to Ted Lutter. I know like when I was coming up to speed, Joe was sending me documents and stuff. If the committee would like, it's easy for Ted to set up a SharePoint site and we can just start archiving documents there. So they're there for transition, they're there with the meetings if there's a public records request. So I just wanted to run that by everybody, we can all have access to it. Does that sound like a reasonable thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, go back to the clock, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No worries whatsoever. All right, any questions on the fundraising stuff? Anyone? We're in good shape. I will let Christine talk to some of the details, but the electrical dimensions were provided, which is necessary to start moving forward. And most importantly, the actual clock got ordered. That would be the biggest step that we could actually do. So we're gonna go through some options. So Christine, Brian, myself, Joe Erickson from the DPW met. We were talking about how this layout would be. We realized that when you look at some of the renderings initially, in this, if you're looking at it, it's the ones kind of bottom right, where it looks like it's just the clock and it's kind of going over the curve a little bit. That's what got presented to the Board of Selectmen. To the left is what we've been working on for the past number of months. So there was probably an inappropriate assumption, at least on my part, that people assumed that we would wind up losing at least one, if not a couple of parking spaces. So that's what we have to discuss, because that has not necessarily been formally presented to the Board of Selectmen, et cetera. And Brian's gonna go through these options. I would say that in my view, there were some other things that we had talked about longer term as well. Those could be things like a pocket park. And Christine was good enough to mention that you can get grants and things like that. There's clearly parking that is becoming an issue. All of this was done pre the electrical spots, the electric charging stations. So those are going to take up some parking spaces as well. So we definitely have to address that. I think the comment was made about potentially doing a parking study. And that could include things like the fire station, maybe even McKay. The church was an option. And I know we're going to talk about the parking lot that you're looking at there and what the town's going to do for the lease. But we do have to address it. Look, the reason that I was intending that this would be more than just the bottom, right drawings. And this is my view. We've never gone out and said this in the public domain or anything, but I view this as Vinyl Square revitalization in 3 phases. It's beautification, it's modification, it's transportation. The beautification we have tried. We have put planters. We weren't able to put trees. The facade, didn't wind up going over well with the residents. We're putting the wayfind signs, that's great. But if we were to do something like the left-hand side of this, now I think that people actually notice something is happening in Vinyl Square, and that would be what I'm focused on. You obviously know the modifications are traffic redesign and transportation's the train. But that was my point of view. So Brian, would it make sense for you to walk through the drawings that you've done, explain that in a little bit so people understand I think there's 4 options?
That's correct, yep. We will
Let's go ahead.
briefly go through the first part of this, a bit of a history lesson, but honestly, we could skip ahead to my next slide. The first one is just existing conditions as of fall of last year. At the time, we were considering modifications of the whole lot. We are not considering that today. So I'd almost rather move forward to sort of just the front half of the lot. I just wanted to get all the drawings together in one place so that we need to go back to them, or for whatever reason, this was a potential modification without moving a curb cut. The next slide is if you move the curb cut 20 feet, or maybe, oh no, never mind, we never moved the curb cut. This is just the initial idea for a parklet or more plantings. When I move to the next one, please. So again, right, what if we did a modification and put the clock outside of the landscape island? What would that look like? And the rendering that was shown sort of late last year.
Can I just explain? There was a couple of comments from the public and also the clock committee, whatever we're called, where that clock sits and where Brian's got the rendering down below, people felt as though you would not see it coming south on any of the routes, whether it's Tingsboro, Dunstable, or Groton. Hence, you're gonna see some other options here to the right.
Does that eliminate the little walkway by the buildings?
This essentially just moves it to the right, but there are several cons to this layout that I don't think it's really worth considering. But it's
You would
it's
walk
important.
Is
where
it
the-
yes or no, does it eliminate the little walkway that's right next to the
How about
buildings?
no, it just moves it to where the clock is. It's modified.
You wanna go next one?
Yes, please. Similar, just a larger version of the rendering. You can go to the next version, the next slide, please. So again, this is where we started from. So the presentation to the select board. And I'm noticing that the clock base there is adjacent to head-in parking. No real protection besides that small wall. No other observations here other than, it is either out in the landscape or adjacent to parallel parking in most instances, so we just gotta grapple with how it addresses cars.
Would there be nothing grown on either side, just?
So that's where we're headed.
But it was a temporary location for the clock, right?
Right.
Right, this was not presented as the permanent location for the clock,
That's
which is
right.
why
That's right.
that sort of thing was said, yeah, okay, that's fine until the traffic improvements are done, and it's relocated.
That's correct.
Paul's right.
Anyway, you think that we should select one else for that short sighted.
The permanent location was supposed to be on the green that's created by the MassDOT reconstruction.
However, we all know that we're how many years away from,
Starting 2028, so
and then they would go through, I don't know how long it would take.
let's say 2 years.
Okay, so you're
Yes.
talking 2030, and this would not be the most prioritized thing to do, I think.
This would be at the end,
Right,
like, I mean.
so you're most likely 6 years away from doing it. And I would like to say, we discussed this as well. You move the clock, if you look at the renderings of some of those, you could keep the park there. It's not like you would pull up the park. It would be the first step in actually creating a pocket park.
Correct. Yeah, so some of the layouts you're gonna see would essentially, when the clock moves, would be replaced with other bricks or another feature in the middle, right? So they all work with an item or nothing in its place when it moves.
Can we go through the options?
Yes, please.
You ready for the next one?
Yes, please. I wanted to talk through a little bit of the existing space numbers. So we're just existing today, there's 16, some of them are small, 2 are handicap accessible. We'll leave it there. That's 16 all inclusive. Next slide, please. We then, sort of in the middle of all this, threw a few electrical chargers. That is not a rendering of that's not what the actual chargers look like, unless it is, I have no idea, but that's about what they look like.
Yeah, close to that.
Right.
I have actually a picture of it, it's similar.
And then we will need to address signage, right? That is not the sign that we're gonna put out. That's a different but related discussion. But there is also other components to the system. You see the transformer, a distribution cabinet, I think, right? Now, I'm not an expert in this at all. I'm just schematically showing it.
Yeah, in the back, I guess, yeah, so it will go to the back, that's the transformer, and then it will step down to the chargers. And each charger does feed 2 parking spaces.
Yeah, so we've got
3 chargers, 6 spaces. 4 in the back, 2 in the front.
great. Next slide.
Yeah, well, if you're no expert, you've done one heck of a good job in putting these together.
Apparently, thanks. All right, so this is essentially if we went with what was shown to the select board condition, right? So we put the clock in that landscape island, we probably dress it up with bricks. We potentially even wrap the bricks into the lot and maintain that pedestrian sort of access from the side of the lot there. Maybe some wheel stops, concrete or whatever, right? I recognize they can be they can be a pain for plows, so maybe not a good idea. I'm just trying to protect the base of the clock for the next 6 years. All right, so that I'm calling option A, right? So that it's essentially if we did what we were intending to do with no modifications to the lot. Next slide, please. So the spaces shifted a bit here, but essentially we took away potentially 2 three of the existing spaces and turn them over into a park, for lack of a better term, and you can put trees in there, you put no trees in there, there's lots of different sort of ways to skin the cat, but it's sort of a larger area of brick. This has a lot of negatives though, and at this point in time, it's really tough to consider additional parking losses. That said, it might be the right thing for other reasons, but this does not work well with the third EV charger either, right? This would.
Yeah, we do have to install 3 chargers per we asked that question, could you only install 2, and it's all 3 minimum.
3 and none. Okay.
I am asking the question of could you relocate it, I don't know the answer to that, and the result, we would have reasons, but that was asked at 2 other sites.
Okay, thank you. Anything on option B before we move on? Maybe I'll get through, there's 2 more, I promise. I said it brief and here we are, not so brief. This is sort of a bare bones version of that option B, calling it option C, but essentially just takes only 2 spaces instead of 3. No other modifications really.
Do you mind me asking, how many parking spaces there now? Your existing, the last one had 11 and then 2, this is 12. How many parking spaces is this?
16 today, 2 of those are handicapped.
16.
Yep.
Does this present the same issue for the EV chargers, or does it resolve it?
I mean, we would have to remove a handicap spot. The EV is handicap.
There's no such thing as a handicapped electric vehicle charger.
No.
So all those people with disabled plates can't park.
Yeah.
That is a fair question. Well, actually,
It's not
Sounds like
a
they
deal.
didn't destroy anything.
well, the EV charging stations the high one, I don't know how accessible they are, because it's difficult for someone to use these high.
They're incredibly high demand, right? Those chargers.
Right, so then.
Would it be game-changing
to allow an disabled person to charge their vehicle though?
That is a fair.
Yeah, let Chelmsford be
Look
the
at
one
us,
to have one.
innovators in the
I
EV
wonder
charging
if you put it in the
equity
weeds,
space.
but-
Good, honestly, I don't hate that idea.
Yeah.
Alright, so,
Anyway,
but
I just want to ask a really quick question about this. Why is there so much brick? Why is everything brick?
we just sold so many bricks and just
They sold.
an amazing response. No.
Where's the green?
So part of raising money, one of the ideas that the committee had was to use bricks like they did at Roberts Field. That's fine.
Undetermined number of bricks, that's a totally fair critique. This one does not show any green, we could absolutely put a little bit more in there. If you don't mind switching to the next one, it adds in basically green, but it does not take away parking. So that's where.
It doesn't what?
It does not take away parking. So this maintains 16 spaces, does so by narrowing the drive aisle that exists today, that's 32 feet wide to 24, which is very standard for 2-way travel. It has a modest green space on the left-hand side. The option D.2 is just the mirror image of this, so that's on the next slide. It adds some what's called gore hatching, or those 45-degree angle stripes to sort of formalize a little bit of the lot. One major change though is it extends the head-in parking sort of against the dog grooming facility on the back there by the transformer.
What is the difference between D1 and D2?
If you go back and forth, it basically takes the handicap spots and switches them to the other side. And the rationale behind that is it's kind of tough to make the U-turn as you pull into that lot and then get into the handicap spot. So that might be a reason to go with D.1 and leave them on the right-hand side of the plan view rather than the left-hand side. Or vice versa, right? I have sort of no vested interest in which one. That's not true, I have an opinion, but of these 2, I don't particularly care on left or right on the handicap spaces.
It'd be great if you could have a handicap space electrically charged.
There you go, right? This does allow for that.
Duly noted.
It also, not for nothing, that business in the back there does not have a great frontage. It's not. It's got stairs, and this is a little bit more generous. I worry that someone will park on that door hatched area on the left. So it's something we will need to figure out.
Bollards too.
Could do bollards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Potted trees.
We could do potted trees. We got a couple of those lying around. That concludes the spiel. So all I've given you is a few options that are troublesome and a few options that are sort of middle ground. and then open it to discussion.
Are these bricks being used someplace else later, or this is where they're living forever?
If we were to remain with a little bit of a larger park, they would stay there, so that you have that park.
But if the clock were to move, wouldn't the bricks go with the clock? No?
If you had that park there, the way that, you know, it's shown, it's a really nice park.
Yeah, but the bricks are sold as part of the clock, to be part of the clock.
The other piece of question
We
is
have not
I
sold
thought
that many
is,
bricks, I've raised the money
do
with
we
it.
leave the clock, I guess is the question.
Is this handsome, is this a prominent enough location? I don't know.
I guess moving the clock out, I mean, it will be on a, it will still, but that could also be hit too. Potentially someone jump in. This is a thought,
That's gonna get hit at 30 miles an hour, this is at 5.
It seems like it's hidden, I mean, it doesn't seem really like you're going through that area, like, is that really viewable?
Any thoughts about?
Can we go around and get?
So many
some-
questions, yeah.
Right, go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm gonna touch the third rail. We haven't talked about, it's going temporary for 6 years. Put it in the common.
Yeah.
And then
We did talk about that.
put it right at the corner, right where the granite posts are.
Just don't obstruct the monument.
that's right.
Yeah, Mike, that
What
was
is
the
the
thing.
statue there?
If we put that and we covered
Perhaps
Alberts in the
yeah.
vinyl.
The econo will be at my door.
Right, so I didn't know that the statue was
They
there.
were already-
We talked
I'm
about
just saying
it.
6 years.
But so let me, can I just play off what Mike said a little bit? I wasn't thinking the green, but the question that I'm left with in all of this is, it seems like a considerable effort, probably more expensive than what was initially anticipated. And then we talked about if we create this park, it could stay as a long-term park. I mean, is there any consideration being given to if what the community wants is to do this configuration, just making that the permanent configuration? Instead of moving it to this green, where the cars are driving around and nobody can sit there anyway?
I think we should address it at that point. I would almost build it as if this is where it's going to go. There aren't many other places. You can put it where Mike talked about, you're gonna cover a monument. You can put it the other end in front of the hardware store, we said no.
Right.
So the only other spot is here.
It was just when I was looking at it, like it looks nice, but for me, if we're gonna go through all this effort, should we just consider making that the clock location rather than digging it all up and moving it again?
Can figure that out.
That was one
Yeah, and
thought
maybe
that-
smarter heads will prevail in 2030, right? We can, so yeah, I'm with you, right? The temporary condition should not be.
We're having electrical brought in, we want DPW to reconfigure a parking lot, we got,
Yeah.
you know, like,
You're gonna have, but when that roadway's all done,
And
the whole place is getting dug up. So
including where we're putting the clock.
the new park is gonna get all dug up with curbing and, you know, get all, so it's gonna be
So what do we
major,
do
in
when
6
we do
years, it's
that?
gonna be major disruption.
Do we have to move the clock for construction?
No, I mean, the limits of the back sidewalk, so they have it protected.
Right, let me just get some other, go ahead, Mike, finish
No,
your thought.
forget it, I was just gonna ask them what their thoughts were.
I wanna just get some other initial reactions. Laura? I'm gonna go around the room.
Either Laura.
Hi there. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I guess one of my biggest concerns from prior meetings is the losing the parking. So, you know, I sway towards trying to maintain that.
Mhm.
And then in terms of long-term, I do like the spot it being being sort of the long-term location.
Where would it go long-term? Where we initially set out in the, I'll call it the island, or where it is now?
Laura, what were you referring to when you said long-term?
Yeah, not relocating and making sure where we put it. And I guess I'm thinking that, you know, the visions that we just saw along the parking lot.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks. Sorry, this is not ideal for me to be driving and being on the call, but thanks for everybody that's put all the effort into this and trying to figure out what we need to do. And I'm with Laura, and we need to try to figure out a way to try to incorporate the updates with the parking and limiting the, maximizing the parking and limiting the amount of parking spaces that we're losing. I kind of favor seeing it in move it in the central part in the long term, but to Bill's point, it's going to be a while before that happens where we have that green space at the end of Middlesex. But if there's something that we could figure out that would maximize parking, still look nice. I don't know if the bricks can be moved or if we just use them as placeholders and then put them in the final project. I don't know. I just know that the biggest concern with everybody's feedback is parking. So, but again, I want to thank everybody for all the time and effort into this already. This is going to be a great addition, but we also want to make sure we're considering everything involved with the final project.
Jason, do you have anything?
Just echo the comments about the parking, because I hear that in repeated meetings.
Okay. Sarita, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I drive through there all the time, it kind of disheartens me sometimes to see it not green. Like, I see that green space in the middle and I want to go there. I walk my dog over there, and this to me is adding more bricks, and I can't visualize how it's enhancing the area with more than just a clock and bricks in the ground.
I think we didn't present that well enough then if you don't see the green.
Yeah,
No, there were a couple options that didn't have green.
Right. But there were options with green.
I just know when I walk through that space down there, it looks older sometimes than some of the other areas that I walk through that has a little bit more green.
You betcha it does.
Yeah.
Aaron, you weren't at the last select board meeting, but you'll be at the next one, so do you have anything you want to? Paul, did you want to add anything, or Christine?
One of the difficulties we were noting is it's a state right of way, so the town's very limited what we can do, and trying to get state approval to do anything in the right of way is like a big ask, as we know, trying to deal with the state.
Will we have to get state approval to put it in?
So we have asked for a state permit already to pull the conduit across the sidewalk. We do own the area where the park would be going.
Right.
So we already started the application process. Worst case, change it, but
Yeah.
I wanted, knowing that that is a long process, we started it.
Thank you.
But it is, I guess anything we do there to change, if we were to change the limits of the back of sidewalk or all, that would require state approval. That might be a little difficult to do, but I think from the renderings basically pulled that back of sidewalk, right?
That's the intent, yep, no further than the property line.
I mean, the only, I think parking is what I hear too, in a lot of the meetings and a lot of, I know we don't know, how well parking is utilized, and so that's something we've always kind of kicked around, but that maybe some type of funding available for a parking study. The only, I also know in some of the strategic planning, that we did for open space, some parts in North Chelmsford, I think this is one of them, like between Drumhill and Vinal, there's just a limited amount of parks. I mean, you have the Varney, but like as far as like, there's no small areas, so it would be an attractive application for a grant, but I think like it's also a prime location, so that's why I just, there's benefits of the park and there's benefits of having park. We just have two competing benefits.
Right.
I missed Evan. Evan, did you have anything?
I think we've covered most of it. I would say that if the municipal lot is the permanent location, I think I saw one option that removed either one or two spaces in exchange for a pocket park. That seems like a pretty reasonable exchange from my perspective. Parking is always going to be viewed as a constraint. More often than not, parking studies determine that there's adequate parking, just not in the preferred location. And there's a variety of other options for the town to pursue parking. So I wouldn't necessarily view the clock and a couple of spaces within the context of adequate parking. I think there's plenty of other options to pursue.
I would agree with Evan. I think that that's what a parking study would show, right?
Yeah. Did I get Laura Lynn on this? I'm sorry, I didn't.
You did not.
Okay, Laura Lynn, did
I'm
you
taking
have
notes.
anything? She there?
Hey, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, agreed with everyone else. The parking is an issue. And the last comment, I think it might have been Evan, it sounded like him, with being able to put the clock in and only take a few spots would be the most ideal. And also agreed, there is ample parking, just not ideal, you know, like not right in the square, but certainly around the perimeter, like the fire station, the church, if that's an option. There's a lot of parking available in those areas too.
Did you want to say
And
something?
there's no viable place on this.
In the common?
It's so heavily treed, that's the problem. Taking the foliage out, you're just not gonna see it.
I mean, it would be on the right street side, but then you're, at that point, you put it in front of the fire pole, or, I mean, you're getting further outside the intersection, so I think the idea is that this is final square, that's, to me, that's like you're entering final square.
That's right, right dead in the middle of the square was the thought. And again, I do want to iterate the whole beautification. I think that we've done what we can. We haven't necessarily had anything that's really popped. Through no fault of anyone's, it's Vinyl Square, right? But this could help with a little bit of that pop. And I'm not trying to take away parking spaces. I do believe what Evan and Christy, we talked about, that you probably will not, you won't have as preferable parking, but there will probably be ample parking if we were to do that. The study. What did you say? I have, if I think Laura Lee, Mike, you guys were talking about keeping it, and I would be very comfortable with this, keeping it in the space that it is now for long term, and in 6 years we can revisit it or something like that. So you make a little bit of yeah, the bricks will be there. You've got nice green.
I think when the final design of the street is done, then we can reassess, do we move it out to the green area?
Yeah.
At that point.
I mean, you'd be moving it out at the end of the project anyway.
Right.
So. It could be something, and it's, well, I guess you could put it in the contract, or we haven't figured that out, but yeah, it's something that can be easily edited or changed during the construction.
At that time, because with the conduit, you got the base, the concrete base.
I think, yeah, I guess we would have to put the have to know if we're putting conduit in as part of the project, but that, I guess, we have extra conduit, it's not, it just be an expense, I guess, to us, but.
So, and I don't, if I've got this wrong, somebody jump in and correct me, but if the committee is leaning toward a longer term aesthetic that includes greenery with an adequate trade on parking or actions on parking, like what would the next steps be?
Like go back in front of the select board.
Well, but like, what is the next step to decide what we wanna do and if it's feasible? These are like conceptual drawings.
Given the feedback / pushback we had from the Vinyl Square community, I would, on the park, the
Do we need
redesign,
another public
I would
input
think he
session
wants some
on
kind of
it
input, because look at the pushback we
before
got
we
from
even go to the
And we
select
are
board?
losing 13 spaces,
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
was one of the prime comments we're
Yeah.
moving, so that's the thing, is that, and we're trying to, that's why we're adding parking on Wright Street, that, so 13 spaces include, parking is going to be lost right at the center, just because of the way the signals fall, and we can't get that back.
Next question on the electric charging stations. Are those open, do they have to be electric car to park there, or it's all by?
So that
anybody
has
can park there?
come up and we're talking about making some signage to limit parking, because these are also the fast ones, so you should be like charge
Yeah.
within an hour. So we're talking about making some new signage, once they're installed, and especially if parking becomes more critical, is to limit parking for 1 hour or 2 hours, for either charging, either electrical or money.
Yeah.
So that came up at the senior center, came up at Roberts Park, is like, if you say this is 2-hour parking, no matter what, then that might, it's something, we're looking into that. Because as we add more charging stations, right, there's more,
There's more
getting the same
available,
space.
right.
And these are fast charging stations, so you shouldn't be parked there for 6-8 hours.
And the way you do that is charge, right, for folks who are parked past their charging.
The police would have to go through and ticket.
No, I think
it's
the incentive is more of a
That's the
carrot
thing,
and a
is just,
stick, right?
the only way to enforce that would be through ticket.
If
So I don't-
it's so connected to the vehicle.
So once it's charged, it says it's 100% charged and then you're not billed anymore, so that would, really? Yeah, I know in mine, like,
On the overcharge, I mean.
I don't think, no, I think it shuts off.
Second issue late.
It shuts off, so,
I guess what I was wondering, like you suggested doing public input probably before we even go to the select board.
Yeah.
Which to me makes sense, given the hot button that parking has been. I don't think July is a good time to do public input. So is there like a next iteration or refinement that makes sense just to kind of bring back to the July meeting that says this is what we would present at public input? Because we don't wanna go, you don't wanna go to public input with like 6 different options, right?
Go with one.
Go with one.
We should
Yeah.
probably agree on.
Go with one.
I will offer, as the person who drew that, they're not ready for public consumption, right? Those are not,
Right, that's what I'm
Legible
saying,
to
if
people who
we're
don't read
leaning, if
plans.
we're leaning towards 1 or 2, do we refine that for July, our July meeting and like get ourselves ready for public input?
Does the committee have, the clock committee have recommendations? And then the Vinyl Square committee could either endorse that, and then if we're all unified, on one same page, then go to the public.
Yeah,
that's what we're trying to determine tonight, right?
No,
the
but he's
focus group
got
or whatever.
he's got a focus group he's been working on
Yeah,
to raise the money. You're asking if this focus group.
Yeah, I want them, I mean, they have the most stake in this right now, what would their opinion be, and then what would this committee opinion be? And then if you're unified, then you go to the town and say, this is the choice, are you in or not? I don't know.
So you need like
I agree.
better, so you need some better pictures. What else I would like to see is what does this whole area look like with, because when you're talking to people and you're so zoned in on one tunnel section, it's hard for them to imagine, I think, the big picture of what's going on in that space.
we do
So if
have
you're
diagrams
affecting-
on that, yeah.
But that's something too, when you're showing people like for the public input, hey, this is my area. And then you show, we're going to here, this is what we wanna do, so they still see there's parking, right? It's not going 100% away.
I don't wanna speak for that committee focus group. I think I could answer one out of the 2 questions. If we were to propose keeping it permanently where it would be, as long as it's not next to the building, but it's in the drawings that have it out towards the middle, I think they'd be fine. They probably might even, prefer that, because they talked
That was
all about it.
D1 and D2, right?
They talked about it being on the island, well, will somebody else hit it? I'm not sure how they would all go as far as the parking, I'm not sure.
But with the D1 options, you don't lose parking.
D1 is net neutral in parking, right?
Right.
With the sort of electric vehicle caveat, but every one of them has them.
And there was greenery on D1.
And the biggest issue with
Pardon?
There was green space on D1.
It is a happy medium, I think, right?
But the difference on D1 was D1 and D2 was the handicap parking was flipped, so they could come in and swing in easier.
Correct, right, so D1 has the clock sort of out in the center of the space between the buildings, yep.
Do we see those two then?
I mean, are you looking for a recommendation from us to get back to your focus group, to say this is what we would?
Well, I think, I don't wanna speak for Virginia as the chair, I think we wanted to make sure that we talked to this committee with the understanding that we could lose parking, and we all had, whether we need a formal vote or not, but we all had our input into an understanding that, because the original drawing was the one hanging over.
I mean, that's 8.5 feet wide, so that is a mini park. I guess we could potentially put a bench there too, it's small.
That's the intent, so probably a 6-foot bench or 2, right, TBD on layout, we can, those are surface mounted, we'll figure it out. Like,
Each charger does 2 spaces, right?
that's correct.
Yes.
So could the charger be on one handicap space and one non-handicap
Yeah,
space? I'm just
yeah.
trying-
Then you're keeping it up for 2 hours.
Space.
Right, but I'm just trying to think, well, now with the limited hour though, you're not gonna ask a handicapped person to come
Why?
out and move, where else are they gonna park?
Well, because you got the other spot, and then you got the other one.
I do like.
Maybe you don't have a limit on the handicap spot.
Yeah, I know, that would be something,
No limit on the
I do
handicap.
like the idea of having something like that, cause you don't see it, but on this option, I like the open on the side, I like the view of it being not blocked coming into the parking.
Yeah, we never talked about putting a handicap spot on a charging station, but it makes sense.
Especially with the future, right? The future is gonna be more.
You're pushing electric vehicles, how can it not be accessible?
Lead the way. Yeah.
Bill,
Yes,
so we're talking about basically D1, right? Or D2, right?
this D1, yeah.
And wait, Christine, you said that could sort of be a pocket park?
Well, I'm saying you have 8.5 feet by 30 feet, that's a decent size, it's more, I wouldn't say, yeah, I mean, sometimes pocket parks are parking space size, I know when they were piloted in New Cambridge, they literally take up 1 or 2 parking spaces, and they put like parklets or.
Who maintains that? The town will maintain it? Who mows the center? The town?
The town,
That's correct.
yeah, so any park
So the town would then
space,
shoot over to mow this?
that's the thing, is it is a maintenance, yes.
Or you're talking about garden club or something, yeah, somebody might want to volunteer.
Maybe we'll
Someone
get
wants to
how
have
many works
lawnmower
we can
down,
add,
does
that
it?
would be easy.
Bill, what was your top choice? Excuse me, what was your top choice, consuming parking spaces?
Yes, and please don't be aggravated with me.
No, I'm not, just which one, A, B, C, or D?
What would it be? You need to go back, I don't remember all the options.
This is B?
That one loses 3.
Yeah, I like the green. To your point, I wouldn't want it all brick.
So it's either B or it's C with green.
Look, the only reason that I'm going there is because I think you wanna make it pop, and I think it might be the start to something in Vine Square, that's all. But look, I am very, very open, I just want the clock. I'm very open to the committees.
Well, I'm just trying to help us kind of get some closure on what the next steps are. Do we flesh out a D, or a D1 and a C1, a BC1, and then just come back and say, okay, we decide which one we wanna go with for public input? Or do we know today, sitting here?
I'm gonna offer that maybe can you go to D1, please?
I do wanna bring up one other thing
Because
as
I know
well
we have people who
before
are
we end.
time constrained too, so we gotta
Yeah.
kind of get to some.
Yeah, cause I have one
Next
other
step.
question I have too.
You wanna go to D1 on there, go ahead.
The one potential risk of this scheme is it lays out parking on the sort of top half of the lot there that's not there today.
It's what? Not there today?
So if you flip between C and D, you can see the changes in the spaces next to where it says 261 SF.
Up here.
Correct, so that is in D. If you go back to option C, it leaves the parking basically head in as you see it today. If you go to option D, it's head in sort of left, right.
Did you gain any spaces by doing that?
You did until we put in the transformer.
But now we're modifying the private lot, aren't we?
No, this is also
right over
within
there.
the public way, yeah. Or
So I-
publicly owned lot.
I have another quick question, what goes on the edge there so people don't get hit from the car going forward?
Where, I guess.
Where the green and the brick is in the front.
Yeah, so you could do curb, you could do wheel stops are not great, right?
High curb.
Curbs the,
Higher curve.
or bollards.
This version,
Oh.
I was gonna say, this version just has a very clean look, I think. Like for the pulling the parking in, and also with like the viewpoint, the open space.
So for the technical team, Brian, Bill, Christine, Paul, like what makes sense? Does it make sense to like just to refine a D and refine a B/C, and then we pick one next time? And Bill get input from the.
I'm open if everybody seems to be leaning towards D1, if we were all in favor of that, I'm not opposed. I do wanna bring up one other thing. We have tried to talk about that street going back to Watton Street. The Kevin Broderick, I think is right, he owns that.
Yeah.
He would love that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I think he might even be open to going. Brian, I'm not at all technical in these drawings, but if I recall, when we were originally thinking about putting the road down back onto Watton Street, it's getting really hard to take a left out of that parking lot.
Yep.
You almost cannot. So I think it would be better for safety. I thought that there would be a few more, not tons, but I thought that there would be a few more parking spaces when you made a formal road back there. Do you remember?
If you wanna go back to the beginning of the deck, that does have it, you could conceptually add spaces, but like, it involves a lot that the town doesn't own, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
We don't have the access room.
It's a lot of permitting too, I mean, it's.
correct, there's floodplain back there, there's wetlands, it is not impossible, it's just technically way harder than what we're talking about here, right? This is, could be done in a weekend.
So the prior owner did share that they had plans developed, that they could build back there, and I don't know.
I hear you.
And I know that the owner of this building, haven't necessarily spoken to the owner of the one that we're looking at in the screen, would very much be in favor of the road going down back, so I'm sure that they would work with the town.
Okay, so let me do this, between D1 and D2, let's pick one of the Ds. I think the conversation actually was more on D2 than D1 because it brings the clock away from the buildings and makes it more front and center.
I wouldn't agree with that, you can put the clock anywhere along the frontage in either D option.
And then if you're going to do something between B and C, do you pick B, C, or is there some hybrid version?
I'd go B, C, it's just too much red brick.
Or do you do C with more green? And only take up 2 spaces, I don't know if you looked at that as an option or not.
Correct, no, it'd be easy to add green instead of brick, yep.
You could go with C, take out fewer parking spaces and make it green.
That's right.
Then I could do that.
So Evan, you had your video on, did you wanna say something? Do you guys wanna just like bring those 2 options back to the next meeting and refine that, and then we'll pick one for public input, or what do you wanna do, Paul, Christine, what makes sense from your standpoint?
I mean, we're gonna move forward with the handhold placement and just to bring power to back the sidewalk, so that has to happen. And then the next steps is this pre-inspection or installation checklist, so that's a lot of that.
Does the option matter? It doesn't matter what option we pick for you to move forward with that?
No, as long as it's in that area, that's fine.
When might the clock come in?
It said it was due in May 29th. I didn't ask because we don't have a home for it.
But that's my worry, Virginia, I asked that for a reason. We're gonna have this big clock come in and we're gonna do more drawings, we're gonna go to public input, we don't have a home for it. So what do we do to move forward with this as quickly as we can? Do we wanna go to D1 or D2, move forward with that without losing parking spaces, and in the future, as they're doing some of the redesign, or maybe when we if we're able to put a road behind, we can talk about making the park a little bit bigger.
I mean, to that point, D1 or D2 doesn't really have any negative impact. You're adding a parking space. And you could potentially, if you really want to make it a pocket park, you could potentially have that conversation and impact parking spaces in the future. And have a grant that would help pay for it. You could have I do think that we do need more parks in this area, that was pointed out in one of the plans, so you could align it with a grant in the future. And you could probably not have to move the clock, at least for the next 6 years, if you expand the park.
You could leave the clock.
So you could have D2, but you could have a future C potentially.
Could you make the length of it even bigger too, right now, more green?
You lost me there.
Could you make that patch longer?
I suppose a few extra feet, right, sort of it's hemmed in by the accessible aisle, which you should, the hatch space between the two handicap spaces, which should connect to the hard surface. And then on the right-hand side there, yeah, you can go.
So Christine, D2 gives you the flexibility to also make a bigger park later if we want to do that, depending on what else is going on. Parking and stuff, is that what you're saying?
I mean, if you were realign the parking spaces up top, as shown in the plan, you could potentially, if you then, let's say in the future, you wanna take out some of the, you could take out the first two parking spaces, that was almost like the option C, right?
Correct.
So you'd be adding on to it in the future.
Seems the best option at this point.
Anybody else have a contrary thought in the Zoom room?
Alright.
What do we need to?
I will make sure that I
Somebody's
get.
trying to say something. Was somebody saying something?
No, I just wanted to say, I'm in agreement. I don't have additional comments. Thanks.
I was gonna say, I'll go back to that focus group and I'll get an answer, by tomorrow, or whatever, to make sure that they be on board with it.
And then we need to bring it to the select board.
Either this coming Monday, I mean, a week from tonight, or 3 weeks from tonight, probably. You don't want to slow down.
Which do you prefer?
I think we go with D1 or 2 and go a week from tonight.
No, I would agree.
No, you were saying like D2, bring it out away from the buildings, I think.
Could you do a cross between D1 and D2 and combine the two?
Well, they
D 1.5?
They can figure that out.
Just off your mind, but.
I think you're generally looking for a nod from the select board on the concept of what we're gonna do. If it refines and changes a little bit, but the clock is still there in the deconfiguration, that should be okay, right, Paul?
No, sorry, and Jason, I hate to call on you, but maybe I gotta to you all to go to fire department, but I don't know if it's critical to get access, like the lot may be set up that way for a reason. So if you don't humor me and go back to D1 one last time.
We're not changing the law.
The back end, yeah, we are.
We said D2, we're not changing it.
I don't know what happened, yeah, that's a question.
And they can still get access to the side of the
I
building,
think
so.
that part is part of the refinement, but it doesn't have to be fully answered in order to just let the select board know this is what we're gonna do with the clock.
Great.
And we've gotta work out the details on the parking lot and public safety access.
Sounds good.
Do you guys agree with me, Paul, Aaron? Right, okay, so the question is, when do you wanna be ready to brief the select board? A week from tonight or 3 weeks from tonight, Paul?
Right, yeah, the 16th or the 30th.
The 16th or the 30th? The packet has to be turned in by the Wednesday before the meeting. Which means this Wednesday or?
2 days from now. I don't see a problem getting to that point by end of day Wednesday if this committee's gonna leave here tonight with a sort of, we all agree, maybe it's not a formal recommendation, maybe it is, but I can turn the drawing around fast, right? I mean, as long as we go with a scheme and if it's minor tweaks, it's minor tweaks.
I'm free on Monday.
Today's Monday.
No, I meant next Monday.
Oh, cool. Actually, I'm looking.
I see you came back, are you okay with this direction? All right, you're shaking his head.
The one thing, that plan will require more curbing too, so we just have to think about that as price that out.
So can we post, you'll need something to pull together that says this is the concept and these are all the other details we're gonna go work out.
Yeah, we'll have a few slides.
You don't have to have all the answers, but just let them know these are the variables that we're gonna go work out.
If you can help with the drawing, I can help with the different questions that we need, and we can send it around to the committee ahead of it going.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we can send it around for information, yeah, that's fine.
Since it has been a while since the select board has seen sort of the rest of it, to your point about sort of the broader picture and then zooming in, do we wanna open that can of worms?
What broader picture?
The overall plan for the square and how this fits into it, right? I wanna sort of.
I think there was 1 or 2 slides that Bill had last time, you can put that up as a refresher if you
Great,
want, it says this is where we were, we've had some discussion, this is what we wanna do aesthetically better, still preserves parking.
Cool. We never really
Potential
thought
to
about it.
expand in the future, and then here's the punch list of things we have to work out, the parking, and the, public access, curbing, just like.
What wasn't contemplated the last time was actually keeping it there.
Sure.
So now if we keep it there, we make it a little bit prettier.
Okay, so is everybody good with that, because it's getting late, I'd really like to just move on and. Okay, thank you very much, I know this has been.
Do we need any sort of a formal vote? We do.
So do we wanna, take a motion to, present concept D to the select board?
I will make a motion,
Some version of concept D.
yeah, I'll make a motion to work with Brian to come up with some sort of version of D1, D2. And present that in the open items that we still have in front of the selectmen next Monday, the 16th.
Yes, okay.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks all.
Okay. So next up, Evan, do you wanna quickly, do you wanna just get everybody up to speed on what's happening with the CBI? And I can put the map up if you want.
Sure, yeah, you can put the map up. And Sarita, the planning board member, is also in the meeting. She can provide some more detail if necessary. At the request of the property owner at, I think it's 73 Princeton Street, that property owner requested that the planning board, as part of their rezoning initiative to create a new CB Light zoning district, that property owner requested that their property be included. The primary interest for the property owner is that the current limited industrial zoning does not permit any retail uses. The mill across the street, which is zoned CB, which is purple, CD, allows retail, restaurants, things of that nature. So 73 Princeton Street is a fairly new property owner. I think they owned it for a couple of years. And they're seeing a lot of interest in very small retail spaces, kind of incubator type spaces. And as I mentioned, the zoning does not currently allow retail uses or restaurants. So that's their primary motivation. This Wednesday night at the planning board meeting, the planning board will be formally reviewing and discussing whether to include this property as part of their CB Light proposal, which is likely going to fall town meeting.
Any questions? I also sent the letter around that Evan gave us from the property owner.
Evan, CB Light, did you mention they could put a restaurant in?
I did.
Okay, great.
That would be wonderful.
That applied to the, sorry, I did one, the dashed line or the green line?
The entire property is the dash line.
Thank you, okay.
Thank you, Evan. And then Paul, I don't know if you have anything additional on the Mass DOT public meeting. We're just.
Christine, go ahead.
So we, as a continuation of Vinyl Square, next phase project that Mass DOT has is between Richardson Road and Technology Drive. Really a road diet there, incorporating new sidewalks, bike path. I mean, it's, as far as that section of roadway is difficult to travel as a pedestrian or bike. So that is part of their vision to add those facilities. We have started the concepts, I'd say less than 10%. And so Mass DOT is holding a public information session on July 8th at the police station, 2 Old North Road at 6 p.m. So we have right now, ICE Stage 1 is called, so intersection control analysis. So we've done the surveying, we've done the traffic counts. It does warrant a traffic signal at the intersection with Richardson Road. So that would be part of
by
what we want to.
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
that's probably a good idea.
So that's proposed, and then continuing from Richardson Road, so it includes Richardson Road, and then it stops just short of Technology Drive, or right at Technology Drive. But it would be bringing a bike lanes and sidewalks in that stretch. And also adding that, that signal. So this is, and as far as where this falls on the tip, it probably would be sometime after 2030. So Final Square is the next in the area, and this would probably be a following phase or following project by Mass DOT.
And I'll just say if the committee wants anybody at this public information session, I'm not available, so you can somebody on
On the 8th? I don't think I am.
I'm on vacation.
Oh, I should wait to ask the question to mascot at that meeting, don't ask you right now, right?
Oh, what question?
Okay, did they consider shared use path as opposed to 2 on-street bike lanes?
So right now they're looking at on-street bike lanes. Are they raised or not raised? I have to check the content, but it's 2 separated, so basically both northbound and east
Yeah.
have bike lanes at
And
unlike, not a shared, yeah.
Cool.
And so it is needed of some of our road diet, and the concept, or the traffic analysis warrants that we have road diet. Because people traveling in that stretch also would assist with traffic calming.
Thank you.
Okay. So, next I just wanted to do a lightning round on some of the status updates on the punch list that was carried over from last meeting. So, first up was the Vinyl Square beautification, the flower planters. Evan, thank you for working that out with Janet. I'm assuming we're all set with that.
Yes, I spoke to Janet this past week. I believe we're all set.
And the tree, were the trees replaced?
Correct, yep, we replaced 4 of the arborvitae's this year.
Okay, Paul or Evan, the parking lot lease.
Evan, you wanted to comment on our meeting with Kevin Broderick?
Yeah, so Paul and I met with the property owner probably almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The property owner authorized the town to proceed with renewing the lease. So that appears to be a fairly straightforward exercise. I believe the town manager's engaged with town council on that. Property owner did not really seem to be overly concerned, didn't ask any questions. So that seems to be more of a renewal than a negotiation, for lack of a better word. Then we transitioned to, future plans for the project. As was mentioned earlier, the property owner is interested in exploring redevelopment, reuse scenarios. So the way we left it was that, he would hire a engineering firm, do some concept plans, and then reconvene. And we expressed, obviously, reiterated the town's interest in the Watton Street connection. He seemed interested, just wasn't sure, what the feasibility would be related to permitting. So at this point, we're just waiting for him to circle back with us.
So I have to go to town meeting at the reauthorization, I'm talking to council for the 30-year.
A lot, yeah.
30
It's 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
We'll go, and I got council drafting a contemporary lease document, so.
There's a special town meeting, are you gonna do it at that one, or is it
No,
going to
that's
fall?
already closed, that's full, so you're talking fall, October,
When does the lease expire?
next April,
Okay,
so we have plenty of time.
very nice.
What was that redevelopment redesign portion that you mentioned in the back?
Evan, I think he's thinking housing, right? Would that be
Yeah,
fair?
he's contemplating trying to incorporate some housing in the undeveloped portion of the rear property. Simultaneously, he's also considering the future of the existing retail business, retail building.
I could probably give a little bit of an update. The previous owners had drawings made up where they would have put condo buildings down at the back. That was always their intent, and I think that's probably how they sold the property.
Where the money is these days, is housing.
Yeah, it's funny, they said, we'd be open to putting a restaurant down on the bottom floor, and I said, why don't you put it on the top floor, we can see the river. Love that idea.
And then, I'm gonna haunt you, Paul, I put the double pole.
We're chasing National Grid to get the double pole removed. Along with a bunch of other.
What double pole is that?
There's one right there. At that parking lot.
Where can I pull power?
Just before the clock goes
There you
in, if
go.
we could get one pole.
I was gonna say, we're asking for power, so it's probably gonna go back.
My banner is on. And actually, so Paul, also the next one is the vinyl square in the Center Village banner post use.
Yeah, be real lightning round, basically the banner should only be up for 2 week periods at most, that's what we try to do with the center and Square, and otherwise, where this came from is Representative Elliott got a complaint from somebody and brought it to our attention, and so we said, okay, we'll not leave banners up for longer periods.
Is that the one in between the post the clock one?
Yeah.
Take it down.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. So
Just tell me,
Yeah.
that's fine. We've raised the money, and yeah, just someone tell me, yeah, no,
We gotta clear it for the library.
take it down tomorrow, that's no problem, sorry.
Yeah, you can do it for the summer concerts.
Yeah, exactly, that'd be a good reason to do it.
Okay.
Done, taken care of, no problem.
Okay, the 25% design assumed.
Sure, so 25% design's been submitted to Mass DOT. We are a bit in a holding pattern right now, where the Mass DOT has to complete their review. It could be months, it's not like, and so the next step that we have is, so they have to finalize accept the 25%. They've already done an over the shoulder, review of it, but they have to go through a process of each division has to accept it. And then there's also now recently added to the Mass DOT process is a utility walkthrough with Mass DOT, and this is to identify any utility needs or potentially additional tracing or locating of utilities. I don't have a date as when that's gonna occur. The thought was it might happen later this summer. As far I know, in terms of the public input, we've already had some we've had input, we've made some adjustments where we could. We've also issued responses to the community, or to the individuals that had responded or sent comments. The next step is a 25% design public hearing. That won't be until they've really wrapped up the 25% design. So that could be this fall. It could, I'm not gonna say it's definitely this fall, because concurrently I know that the state's working on the Chelmsford 110 project, and it's got a very similar schedule, and they told me for that project, their 25% design hearing is probably next spring. So I'm hopeful it's this fall, but it could be sometime could be later.
Okay.
What I'm doing is checking in monthly with them just to see if there's any updates, or to see any scheduling of that design public hearing or that utility walkthrough. And it still is on target for 2028 today.
Okay, do you want to keep going, you're on construction items?
So various items, wayfinding signs, so the wayfinding signs in coordination with Evan, either have been installed or are in the middle of being installed. There's 4 locations right at the right in Vinal Square. We'll hold those signs, or some of them I think still have to be purchased, and have those installed, at the completion of the Vinal Square project. But all the other locations in the outskirts of Vinal Square are being installed right now. There was a request to add a sign as you're coming into Chelmsford on Middlesex Street. One of those, I call them the Mass DOT Welcome to Chelmsford signs. So we are looking into purchasing one of those. Also, roads and sidewalks, there's no large updates in terms of North Chelmsford, except that Main Street RFP for the traffic calming design. That design was awarded to GPI. So we're going through that schematic design right now. Hopefully we'll have an update for the group later this summer, early fall. And the idea would be to potentially start implementing some of that next year.
Main Street, taking the left up by the.
So between School Street and Groton. Let's see, I had a couple other things on here. Middlesex Street Bridge repair. Right now, National Grid is on Middlesex Street. Water work has been done, but there's actual repairs needed to the bridge itself. There will be shut down in one lane, it will be one lane will remain open, but, July, after school, July and August, that will be, in construction. So you will still be able to get through Middlesex Street, just it will at sometimes be one lane.
I don't know where that bridge is.
Just a brick house.
Brick house,
Just a brick house.
Brick house, you know, up in
Right there, that bridge needs repairs.
Oh, that, really?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It's really I guess whether you call it a culvert repair or bridge repair, but that whole area is required repair. And we do have our listing of roadway streets being paved this year. We're just getting started any day now with paving, probably the next couple of weeks. So we have 9 miles of roadway throughout town, just over $3 million.
Okay. Freeman Lake.
So actually, we have Freeman Lake, so we have 2 NOIs. We've been through a process where we did a whole comprehensive lake management plan with TRC. As a result of that, we've looked at different management plans for the treatment of the lake. One of the NOIs was mechanical harvesting that was approved at the last conservation committee meeting. So we're looking right now to schedule that work the next couple weeks, a week. And then the other NOI is pending, hopefully approval tomorrow night, and that is a various, I call it kind of tools that we'll be looking to use the next 5 years. It could be spot treatment, it could be a whole lake treatment if we have funding, and so that permit would be good for 5 years. And so hoping that, we have approval tomorrow night, but that has to be continued for tomorrow night. And if it's, I guess, the other thing, people are asking us, when are you going to treat? If it's approved tomorrow night, we have to kind of see it through the appeal process, which is 10 days. If it gets appealed, that might delay our window, so we're just monitoring that right now.
I saw a lot of the individual emails. Do we need to do anything formally as a committee?
So there was no time to do anything formally as a committee before they opened up the hearings. I wrote a letter as me that I shared with you guys, and I went to the first hearing and spoke as me.
Yeah, that was very effective.
And tomorrow night, like Christine said, they gave the residents who were still pushing back on the herbicide spot treatment a deadline to get their comments in, and told them they're gonna make a decision one way or the other tomorrow night. If you want to come and speak in favor of it, I'm planning to go in case something else needs to be said, but.
I wish I could be there.
Huh?
I wish I could be there.
I think Christine's right that, the expectation is that if it gets approved, it may just get appealed again because the residents have one more easy appeal process they can go through before they have to start hiring attorneys and lawyers.
Yeah. Is it up to 2 now, or is it just 1?
One what?
One individual that did 1?
No, it's 2. It's been 2. It's been 2.
Is this the case where you need the signature of 10?
I don't know, I don't know,
Okay.
no, I think you only, anyone.
Anybody.
I mean, if you, I don't know, you were, I had some wise counsel on this last time too. If you guys think it would be appropriate to take a vote tonight in support of aquatic management, I can stand up tomorrow night and tell them
I would love to
who
do it.
supports it. I don't know if it really is gonna make a difference, but at least we can do it if you want.
Doesn't hurt too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion that the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee supports aquatic management.
Aquatic management and OI approval.
Yes.
I second that.
We have a second by Sarita, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll just assume Laurel is okay. Alright, so I will plan to go to, if anybody else can be there or join on Zoom, that's, you're welcome to. You have to ask for the Zoom link ahead of time on that one as well. But I'm happy to just go and let them know that the whole committee voted in favor of this.
Thank you.
Yep. Next up, we have the, I didn't know if there were any updates on Garden Park or the beach, Jason or Christine or.
Ready for my beach?
I can just say, it hasn't been too busy down there. As noted earlier, the weather has been dismal on the weekends, but we are trying to have officers covered down there from noon to 4. And we'll probably expand that to 4 to 8 as well once school gets out on the weekends. They're obviously doing the routine patrols as they always do. And there was an issue popped up down at Southwell this past week. There was a party spot located in one of the nature trails. We tried to determine if it looked to me like it was just kids. Not like a homeless encampment or anything like that, but I believe DPW was cleaning that up today.
It was cleaned up today.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just like a couple of chairs, I mean, it was like fencing, poles, I mean, real lumber, I mean, this was like, this is the best encampment I've ever seen for hanging out for kids.
Yeah, it was removed
Don't put it in
today.
the minutes, but I'm happy to see the kids outside partying like that.
I don't know if
Getting it
it was
working.
very particular, very,
Yeah.
I mean, they did the foundations and everything, so.
No kidding.
I thought they were the old kids.
I don't know.
School project.
But it's been removed because it was right in the middle of the trail. Yes. And the only other updates on that for the beach is that, ropes are in, so yeah, we're, even though the weather is not great, we're all set with the beach being open through Labor Day, and there was a memorial bench that was installed in Barney Park, and that was just complete in the May.
Dedicated to who?
Dedicated, it was a resident that had dedicated it to his son.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it's right in the park, right up against the fence.
Oh, that's wonderful. I did actually have a question with all the rain. Did the beach wash out as it normally would?
No, it hasn't been like deluge, it's
Yeah, it hasn't been.
They-
constant.
Yeah,
But that was one of our biggest issues, right?
It's erosion improved.
We still have erosion, we still need to do something with that wall, but. Yeah,
But it
it's-
didn't wash out or anything?
No, we haven't had like the ancient rain
Yeah,
2 years ago.
good stuff.
Okay. Paul, would you, I'd like to update on Ledge Road?
Yeah, with the public hearings will continue and conclude, we expect, a week from Wednesday on the 18th at 7:30 PM at the senior center. That'll be televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. We expect a big turnout. It was a big turnout when the hearing was continued last Thursday. And then sort of similarly, what you heard earlier, we expect whatever gets decided may be appealed. But it's going to conclude, very clear. So that's good.
How, I know that there was supposedly a death in the family, you can't get mad at anybody for that. How many times can they continue to push it?
Well, as long as the board and the applicant can agree, but I think at this point, they made the message clear
Yeah.
that there will be no more continuances, barring catastrophic situation, then the hearing will go on. Will be concluded.
Thanks for all the support in it.
Okay, Paul, anything with Lawton Street or the boat?
No more than what we've heard recently from Rodney Elliott and from Chief Ryan, that, they had a public comment period. Again, we don't expect construction, maybe 2026 season, so at least a year out at this point.
So we don't need to keep revisiting that right now?
No.
Okay, and I don't know if there was anything on the cell tower that you mentioned last time.
Yeah, we had an inquiry for, somebody wanted to put a cell tower at 54 Richardson Road. But as you know, the topography there is really peculiar, because remember when we mined sand in the back? So I reached out to the company to say, well, could you give us more detail, like where would you place a tower, could you do a balloon test? Which is what the select board requested. I haven't heard back in a week, so I'll keep on that and keep you updated if and when a balloon test or something would go, because.
It's pretty close to the other tower, isn't?
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
know where the establishment is
Yeah, exactly.
T-Mobile, the
Yeah, it's
other,
not
I think
that far.
across the street is Verizon.
Yeah, that's why, I just think there's such a demand, I mean, because of this whole 5G and other stuff that is looking everywhere. They want to expand the one on the roof we're in here, and I got another inquiry today about one at the golf course. Where at the golf course? Park Road. They're definitely looking quick. Anyway, so that's all that's going on.
What is that, what's the balloon test?
They basically put a balloon, they fly a balloon so that people can actually see the height and the location of where the tower would be. That's what, they literally fly a balloon. If it isn't a very windy day, it works. That way people can see it, particularly here, because like I said, you've got neighbors and butters there, you know, they'd be looking over the tower. I don't know how this works. That's why I'm real curious to see what they have in mind.
Any update on the North Station aesthetics?
The stucco wall, the bottom of the building has been complete. And as far as, I mean, I think if you drive, I think that has made improvements to, and so we do, I guess, still need to look, say, for any potential aesthetics from a cost perspective. We have to understand costs and potential. We had some initial recommendations from Weston and Sampson, we also looked at cost of cost. So that's still pending.
So at this point, all the work for the warranty and the triumph, the contractor is done. They're basically off the site. So again, Laura, if others, we welcome your continued feedback now that what's there is there in terms of any suggestions, as Christine said, to go, to whether and how to go further.
So you have ideas from Weston and Sampson for
So
the
they said
aesthetics part of it?
you could potentially add some trimmer on the windows,
Right.
but they have to then look further into how you would install it. So they said you could do it, we have to basically cost it out and speak with some vendors. So we can pursue, I guess, a design with Weston Sampson if we really want to, but I guess also when we were looking at it a few months ago, it was still not finished. We've had a lettering put up, so it's complete now. So I guess feedback would be helpful, because we would have to spend money, and I don't know what that is to spend that money.
What kind of feedback are you looking for and when? I mean,
yeah,
like the committee and Laura and others have already said, like, it looks like a warehouse,
Right.
can we do something?
I'll give you some
But this way, if we're gonna do something going to the town meeting for funding, we really need that by the end of August. So I would say if this committee or Laura and whomever could get us feedback in the next 2 months,
In what form, Paul, how do you need feedback?
either from this committee or from residents in terms of what their thoughts are on how the appearance of the building can be improved or should be improved. Yeah. In terms of like what, do they wanna see molding, do they wanna see, we don't know what.
Landscaping is something that we could incorporate. if we
That's
get
the
to
only thing.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that Laura Lee is on the TV right now and not sitting at the table.
Yeah.
Because Laura, it's grown on me and I'm good. I like that.
What?
It's got a modern look with an old fashioned, the brick.
Oh, Bill, you need help.
But the landscaping would be a great idea, I think.
I mean, that's something that we could do.
I saw some
You
trees.
talked about
The arborvitae, maybe.
You talked about window lighting, and I can put it on July if we want to just brainstorm.
I would say,
I mean, I can-
I even think, you'd kill me for this, but we put black lettering on dark gray siding, like if that was white lettering, it would like at least give something to pop. It just-
But I think, so we looked at the white, and I think the black is what popped actually.
Really?
It look tight, crisp, right?
Okay, so
Black on
we
gray.
can brainstorm that more in July,
Please,
so that,
please, yeah.
Could somebody bring pictures of the front? Throw it up?
yeah, if you can get us some.
Yeah, I can. I have-
Laura, do not hunt me
All
down.
right, you're slowing me down off of lightning speed. I'm gonna bring that, I'm sorry, Laura, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll talk again next month. Paul, you just wanna give us summary of where the banners wound up and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the parade committee banners are up for the 4th of July. I guess theoretically we could order more if somebody else wanted one and, put them up, in another phase, but we're less than a month away from the 4th at this point.
Isn't that amazing?
So the banners will be out through the fall.
They look really nice, especially like next to the flags.
Yeah.
With the Minutemen on them.
That might be something in the future where we have the flags and the posts, we possibly might have to do something with that, especially as we hang the
Wreaths.
wreaths.
Yeah.
And we're getting new ones, you have the money.
Yep,
Um,
new ones.
I did what I could to help them, go to all the different businesses and stuff, I pushed with what I could.
Actually, Santa messaged me this week asking if we still wanted to have them.
Are these the lit wreath, white wreath?
Well, we gotta get them bigger than this.
Let's get through
Let's
July, then we talk about Christmas.
Right now,
Okay, all right.
So, other community updates, Evan, do you have anything?
No, I do not have anything new to add.
Jason?
No, nothing.
Christina, Paul, did we miss anything?
The only thing I would note that isn't on the agenda, but is significant, is 255 Princeton Street is open, meaning the first units have been granted occupancy permits, they're renting. And then the next two phases at the former West Campus, I think it's August and October. So, I just encourage people, let us know what you're seeing in terms of impact from that. And obviously it's gonna ramp up as the units get occupied and so forth. So that is a big milestone.
You said that was at
255 Princeton Street, the former UMass, the old West Campus.
Okay.
The occupancy permits were granted for the first phase, which are the townhouses as you come in, and then the building a little ways down on the other side. But it's, that's a big deal
Great.
historically.
Does anybody on the committee have any comments or questions about community updates?
No questions, but I don't know where new business is, I had a couple of things, can we put it in this?
For future, yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
For a future meeting?
No, I want to talk about a few things tonight, I promise I'll keep it quick.
Go ahead.
One of them is null and void. I tried to get in touch with Louise Sternley from the hardware store, haven't been able to. I pinged Evan between, it's R&P Automotive, then you're coming up the bridge by where the mill is, then there's the kitchen place, and then you've got the bridge. The property down to the left, 20 years ago, there was one truck. Now there's, I don't know, I think 12 or 14. Is there a number, like, can trucks just be down there and all that? I don't know.
What road is it on?
It's right on, Route 4. So go by Princeton Station,
Yes.
just before you have,
Three there.
over to the left.
Three over.
It's like, I didn't know if there was any regulations or anything on that. I don't know.
Is it zoned as?
I just seen so many more trucks and things like that down
So
there.
you go past Princeton Station towards.
That's it right there, you got it. There's lots of them and
Where
like
the
storage
overhead wires are
bins
across from
and-
the substation.
Across from where?
So if you look at
Right
it,
here.
the establishment's right there.
Yeah.
Then it's that
R&B.
wires
there.
house, and then there's all moving trucks.
Is that part of the
Do you
Sandy
think
Hall?
do you think they're part of the business, or is it like renting out places to like the car dealership to store their cars or something like these days? We had some Highland Auto at one point, they were putting vehicles, remember at where the liquor stores being built.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder-
Or, they're not using that space for the liquor store, are they parking it for the day?
No, these are trucks.
moving trucks.
Yeah, there's something.
Different than the moving company that's down by Southwell, I think.
Yeah.
99%.
I didn't know.
I mean, that'd be a Jose question.
Yeah, you check in.
Keep an eye on it. My last one is, maybe it can be in the future, but I think I might ask the committee, Jason, ask you to really listen to this one too. There was a nice park in Billerica that Tommy Glavin, they named after Tommy Glavin. And we have somebody in our community that has made it very big into the sports world as well. And I would like to think of something that we could do to donate and name something after this individual. I mean, it might be the skating rink, but
Did he ever skate there? No.
I don't know the answer to that, but if there
Parents
are,
live up the street from me.
right, if there are, look, he deserves it.
So is he gonna donate something to Chelmsford, or are we gonna?
I'm thinking along that line, so you would look at, what sport thing is needed, and we'd approach him and ask the name it after him.
Right now, we're doing McCarthy, deck hockey.
You can do that, now, if you
And
want to do
we're,
that.
the boards, I can tell you how much they cost. And they're right now is, actually it's out to bid right now as an adult, because we don't know if we can afford it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, keep me posted. Sorry, that's it.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
I had one quick one, I just wanna make the committee know, and I wanna make sure that the town was aware, I got notified of it. The town of Westford's doing a complete rezoning study of Route 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a strategic plan, went up on 7 years ago now, for sort of the village, the square itself. I don't know if ones have been done along corridors, but I'd be interested to see how the result of that might influence some of the parcels along 40 as well.
Well, because my thing is, what's it zoning for development?
Correct.
That they're looking for economic development.
Correct.
Which is sort of the antithesis of what Chelmsford wants to do with Route 40.
I think given, right, maybe a public forum, that might be the minority, I don't know, right, but worth considering, that's it.
Good input.
My next agenda item was just, I knew that we wouldn't have any bandwidth for this tonight, but I sat down and I went through the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan with Evan. And there are areas that haven't been addressed, and I wasn't sure if that was intentional and they've been vetted, but I was going to suggest that I could summarize what where Evan and I saw potential gaps and bring it to another meeting, and we could talk about whether we want to drop them or do something more intentional in some of those areas. I think what the committee's been focusing on is what was prioritized, but a lot of that is kind of in a lull right now. So my thought was this might be a good time to just refresh on what's there and also talk about whether or not we want to update the plan because it is 10 years old.
10,
It's a great
Can you
idea.
believe it?
I think it's time. Thank you for doing that.
Okay,
And
so
thanks to Evan too.
I'm gonna put that on a future agenda. Is there any public comment?
All good, thank you.
Okay, any other future agenda topics or upcoming event planning? When do we start planning for the holiday stuff? Is that later in the summer?
Sounds like he's got a.
Yeah, Santa initiated it.
What? I can't do, I didn't hear the one of you.
Santa initiated it earlier this week, so next month. Give me till July to start planning for the
No, do
holidays.
you want me to put anything on an agenda in July or August, or I'll take my cue from you.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we will come together as a subgroup and report out to the committee next month.
So there's a subcommittee for the holiday decorating sort of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Loosely.
Not all members of that subcommittee are members of this committee, right? So I don't know
Yeah,
what the
that's-
terms are, but yeah, there's
Well,
a
and
group of
maybe
people that
that's-
do this.
So, and I know Joe's brought up that we used to have a bunch of subcommittees, some of them I think are maybe still applicable, not applicable, but we can talk about that too when we need to look at the plan and where we are and what makes sense to either revitalize or start again.
Yeah.
Okay, our next meeting is July 21st. And unless anybody has anything else, it's actually 8:59, and before 9 o'clock, we're going to take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Banner will be first thing in the morning, already done.
Does anyone know what the big project is they're doing in Tingsboro? Behind, it's like over behind like the storage area and stuff like that that runs towards the library in Tingsboro, like they totally cleared out like a bunch of trees like from end to end, like behind the library and stuff in Tingsboro. It's a huge, it's like near the end, it's near like one of the not MBTA, one of the bus pickup things, but the woods are literally cleared, like a huge portion of woods have been taken down by 40B. It was just amazing when I saw it, all that deconstruction.
Where's the library?
If you go past the Tingsboro Bridge on your right and you keep on going up, it's on a side Sheet Street to the left, before like the storage, you know the big storage places on the left?
Thanks.
So aligning on either side of the storm
Dead
sewer
horses.
is completely taken out, you can't see it from the house, you can take out all the woods. And if you go by where the library is,
I'm
it's
because I
completely
did
clear.
email about why your lights now.
That wasn't
So
sure.
we
And then I recently saw
actually
another one
buy
on the
it
edge of,
holiday
they just went to
lights now.
Pepperell, they're coming back from
You
Pepperell
usually
towards.
buy by
Do
a-
more
Exit 5, a lot more.
They're on
clear
sale
cut.
right now.
I'm like, where are all the animals going?
I haven't
Like,
seen
nothing.
Buy
Throw some in my backyard.
I
I get the most, I get the weirdest set of animals where
If you
I'm
don't.
like, I get
This
every
is
time,
tiny,
like,
it's a
literally,
really
I'm right across from the.
We're just gonna
car
buy
wash.
it a little bit and then that way we
Yeah.
have.
Right next to
it.
Phillips. I don't know if they're coming from like a small river. Bear, pleasure, skunks,
Yeah, what year's
possums,
better,
like,
the proper right.
Like, and I have like tons of birds too.
Laura and Laurelyn, are you okay if I end the Zoom or did you need something?
Yep. Nope, just listening in. I'll hang up too. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
My wife's the one that bought the wreaths that exist today, and they came in and I